It's happened, it's happening, and oh baby, welcome back to the Krown Crypto channel. It is a very lovely, bright and sunny morning over here from Helsinki, Finland. Very, very few and far between of those mornings that we do have over here, but more importantly, and to the point, Bitcoin on the move, finally breaking down to our 24,800-ish region, an area that we've been looking at for quite some time now. And over the past couple of weeks, we've been following up on this analysis. The probabilities have been slowly shifting in favor of the bears for a bit of a break here. Today's video is going to be focused on potential continuation targets for that break, as well as maybe if we can find a bit of hopium as well. Other than that, I do want to let you know that you can still get the Jewel Light for free for the first 30 days if you follow the directions in the link in the description below. And then yes, there also is an affiliate link to the decentralized exchange Apex, which will award you 5% off of your trading fees for the lifetime of your account. All right, sweet. Let's just jump right into it. Starting off right over here on the 5-day time frame, this CME chart actually. And of course, yesterday, or not yesterday, but over the past couple of weeks, been saying, hey, Bitcoin does have a maybe, dare I say, optimistic first dump target of about 24,800 based off of the volatility versus stochastic momentum chart, which we'll go over a little bit later. And then also the mean band on the Gaussian channel over here on the 5-day and weekly time frame on CME. As you can see, Bitcoin has, smashed that target. That was, I do not like saying it like that. I don't like saying it like that. But Bitcoin has met that target with flying colors in this case. But it is at a major turning point, because if it does start to give way of this mean band, the mean band on the Gaussian channel about 24,800 on spot price action versus about 25 on CME here, that's at the point where significantly more downside likely does get enabled over the next week and a half to 2 weeks or so. In this case, as long as Bitcoin is above that mean band, this more optimistic dump target, if you will, could be the hopium that Bitcoin, levels out somewhere around here, maybe get some wicks below, but no major closures below, and then flips back around. But for right now, looks a little bit unlikely. The reason why I say it's a little bit unlikely is, well, a few things. First and foremost, well, I wouldn't say foremost, but just easiest because it's on this chart right here, would be the 5-day RSI. 5-day RSI is actually putting in a bit of a head and shoulders. You can see a double left shoulder over here, head over here, and this would be your proverbial right shoulder as it does trend below the moving average as well. More importantly, it is on the precipice of breaking, and the 5-day time frame is closing tonight for CME. And if it does break below that region, then I would consider this one confirmed. And we probably do see at least a test somewhere down around the edge of the bearish control zone. What does that mean ultimately, though? Or why am I even bringing this one up? Because typically speaking, I don't really care too much about formations. In fact, I want to get really serious on this one. How do you like me now, sir? But more importantly, very rarely do I call them out on price action. Yeah, they work out, and yeah, I've seen, I do know a few people who make them work rather well, actually. But the few and far between. And in my experience, when we do see these things on an RSI oscillator, for example, typically holds a lot more weight than when we do see it on, on price action, of course. And in this case, yeah, this one would be pretty fucking clear here. And again, yeah, any sort of a closure here or lower by end of day, and yeah, that will likely take us into the next couple weeks of price action, having a more significant downside bias, dare I say. Anyways, going back into it over here and going into our next chart, a chart that I think many people are familiar with, and it is the volatility versus stochastic momentum chart over here. We identified that yesterday and the day prior. This one was in the in the process of being confirmed and expanding, and it was kind of like the balls in the bears court yet again. If we're going to see a break, it very likely happens within that next 24 to 48 hour spread. Obviously, we got that a little bit sooner rather than later, which is fine. And in this case, we can see that volatility is continuing to expand from these regions as well. So ultimately, this is the signature that we've been waiting for. It's tested patience, like my patience has never been tested before. But that's part of the game. And in this case, this one looks like it will seemingly work out yet again, as we do see that the direction of the stochastic oscillator right here is heavily positioned to the downside after getting rejection from getting outside of the bearish control zone, and will remain with downside pressure on price action as long as Bitcoin is below 25,500. The thing with this is, as I bring up my stats over here, is that we can get a little bit more granular for just looking at the short resolutions of this particular setup. As you can see, there's been 19 prior iterations in the full history of Bitcoin. Of those 19, 16 have worked out with significant downside fashion, giving it a rather high strike rate. In this case, it's going to go up to 17 now at a 20, I suppose. So probably in the mid 80s as far as win rate goes. These results on average took about 14 days to play out, and the average return was just under 26% actually. Now there is some variance within these results, obviously. On the lower end, we've seen like mid to upper teens. On the upper end, we've seen, mid 30s actually. So going back into it over here and kind of playing around with those numbers now that we do have this one firing off, we can see that if this one were to go for like mid-teens, we'd probably be looking somewhere around mid 23,000 and a half. So that would be my next sort of major area of interest if Bitcoin were to, does assumedly close below the areas that we just spoke about on the prior chart. As I go back to my face over here, hello. Welcome back to the Krown Crypto. Get some face action, baby. But more importantly, this particular setup has been going, officially fired off, I would say, right around here. So, if we do go for the average, what sort of like timing would we be looking at on that? We'd be looking at like next week, basically between next week and the end of the month, actually. Next week and the end of the month. So the next sort of proverbial area of interest, assuming that Bitcoin does close below the mean band of the Gaussian channel, somewhere around 23.5. And if things get really, really crazy and we go for the average, then, at that point could be looking somewhere closer to 21,000 bucks or so. So that is still within the cards over there. And something to be aware of long term, I would say here. Anyways, moving through that now. And again, that's all assuming, the closure below the mean band continues to hold. But for right now, that looks quite likely. Anyways, moving on now, we can go a little bit more into the shorter term timeframes. Yesterday, we were looking at a 2-hour timeframe chart over here. I do believe it was, or maybe it was on CME, but ultimately on the HPDR indicator, we were looking at, what was it? It was either like 26 on a daily or 25,550 on a 2-hour. Obviously both of these things were absolutely smashed right there. We can see the 2-hour kind of basing off of the bottom side of the 80% of historic returns range lows at this point. Does it try to bounce around here a little bit more? Again, that is a hopium for the Bulas. And yeah, we already kind of have seen a decent bounce from low to high. I mean, yeah, about almost 2%. Not bad. But the real question is like, is bounce reversal? And, as long as Bitcoin's now below, especially like the breakdown point of, let's just say 25,500, all bounces are just that, bounces before likely getting ready for low price action. So there's two ports of hope, or there's one major point of hopium, which is the mean band on the Gaussian channel holds, which may or might get destroyed later today. You'll know that is a relevant source of hopium if and when Bitcoin starts to close back above 25,500 or so, even on like a medium term time frame. Until then, hopium is just that. It's hopium, not something to be reliant on, in my opinion. As far as the 2-hour time frame chart goes, you can see it's still expanding over here, so I don't believe that this move is just done. I do think that this is a corrected bounce as of right now. I do think that this one is, generally speaking, likely to go lower. 4-hour time frame range lows. Next range low would be lower 24,000 bucks, about 24.4 to 24.5. So maybe another short-term time frame bounce over there if Bitcoin does trend there throughout the day. And then looking at the daily right here, we can actually see Bitcoin at the bottom side of the daily range, which is very, very interesting. So I guess that'd be another source of hopium now that I recognize it. Fair enough, we'll take all the sources of hopium that we can get, I suppose, for the Bulas, because it hasn't been too nice for them, especially like starting the last 10 days or so, I believe. But that would also imply that, below 24,800, yeah, I mean, you're probably going to get a bounce at low 24, but ultimately 23.5 is going to be big, and then my face is going to be big as well. I'm going to have too much fucking fun with this one. But yeah, 23.5 and then 21 respectively would be the next sort of major areas of interest. So two sources of hopium now: HPGR daily range lows plus Gaussian channel mean bands. But that's going to have a chance to actually be broken today. So that would be a big one to be aware of. If Bitcoin starts to break it, of course, that's at the point where, hey, again, get ready for this one to trade significantly lower, I would say. Ultimately, though, long term, I do think that this is an opportunity. Just personal opinion, for the reasons that we've gone over in the long term macro Sunday videos. I don't think that this is like going to produce new lows or anything like that. New lows like below the $15,500 current low for this cycle. But things can come down more, obviously. So, this is still just another reminder that long term, where is Bitcoin within the general trajectory, or where do at least I think Bitcoin is within its general trajectory? It's not a bull market, not a bear market. It's a transitionary market going from transing from bear to bull. But obviously this portion of the market cycle is the most boring and the most patience testing portion. And will take time, obviously. So, ultimately we just had a pretty significant, Bitcoin had a pretty significant move from like $15,500 to $31,000. Yeah, it's going to give us some gains here, or very likely to give us some gains here. So I think that's a good note for me to be leaving off on this particular video. As always, want to be wishing you the best of the best. Take care, much love, and see you hopefully Friday.